spend time with yourself to learn what is your purpose. Why do people quit their jobs? It's because the job or the work they're doing is not in alignment with their purpose. It's not fulfilling them. And when you have those things in alignment, your attitude, your outlook, and your perspective changes radically.
Welcome, everyone, to the Road Less Traveled Show. This is a show about people that were successful in a previous career and left that career to go down a different path. I'm your co-host, Richard Coyne.
And I'm your co-host, Bill Zahller.
On today's show, we're so pleased to have Fred Moskowitz. Fred, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. It is a pleasure to be here. And I just love the theme of your show, your program, because that really resonates so much with my path in life.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, yeah, Fred, we want to thank you for being on the Road Less Traveled Show. And let's dig into that then. Can you tell us a little bit about the initial path you're on and how long you were in that endeavor?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, so I started out having a very successful career as a computer engineer. And I spent a lot of time, many years working at technology startup companies for the most part. And one thing was happening was that after seeing my industry get turned totally upside down from the bursting of the dot-com bubble, and then that was followed by the September 11th terrorist attacks, just all of this turmoil in the world. And I realized that I was taking this huge risk because I was too dependent on the income from the paycheck from my job, right? And that job, it was a job I loved, but it was full of so many circumstances completely out of my control. And I learned that no matter how talented of an engineer that I was, or how valuable of an employee I was, I learned that if things were not going well financially at the company or in the industry overall, that I could quickly lose my job for no fault of my own, right? And it really bothered me that I was taking that such a huge risk. And so what I decided to do, that made me seek alternative sources of income. And I said, I want to have other income sources so that, yeah, I'll continue working, but I have something else just in case something happens. And so with that, I turned to investing in assets, in hard assets. Started out with rental real estate, built up a rental portfolio, and did really well with that. But then later on, a number of years later, I got introduced to the whole concept of note investing, of investing in the financing side of real estate transactions. In other words, buying notes and mortgages that were secured by real estate. And I got into that business, and I realized that I was getting involved in something that I could really grow and scale into something big. And so I love that. And so that's been my path. And what was happening to me was my note investing business, it grew and evolved over time. And eventually I left the engineering world. Mm-hmm. And what was happening to me was that I was getting invited to speak at investor conferences and industry events, right? And what was happening was people were coming up to me saying, hey, Fred, I love what you're doing with note investing. It looks like you really have this figured out well. You've been successful. And I love the business, but I just don't have time for that myself. So could I maybe give you money or invest money with you, and you go out and buy some notes for me? And so I, being very very aware of this, I realized you're not allowed to do that. And this is what I was telling people. You're not allowed to just accept investor money and invest with it. There's a lot of regulation, and it gets involved with the Securities and Exchange Commission and all that. And so for the longest time, I said, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm sorry. There's a lot of rules, and I don't want to be breaking the rules. So after multiple years of this, though, it kept showing up over and over and over again. And so finally, I decided that I wanted to, was going to start a fund and do a proper offering, get it registered and do all the filings with the Securities and Exchange Commission. And so I decided to go ahead and do that. And it was a lot of work, right? The first time you do something, it's always the hardest, it seems like. But it took over 6 months of working with attorneys and CPAs and the compliance experts and doing all the filings and registrations. But we got it done. And then I had my first note fund up and running, where I was able to raise capital, do it the proper way. All of our investors would be, properly protected under all the compliance and everything. And so that's been my evolution in this business. But it's been a fantastic journey, and I love the career that I had, but I also love being an active investor as well. And I think that a lot of the engineering skills and ways of thinking has carried over well into note investing. There's so much numbers and analyzing the finance piece of it that really has been exciting for me. I enjoy it very thoroughly.
That's great.
Excellent. Yeah, it's interesting because there's so many people that they want that good job, go to school, get a good job. It's been beat into our heads from the time we were little. And again, I followed that path, and I had a good job, and I did well in my field. I was on the IT side, but I was really more in the project management, and then ultimately in the sales and P&L side, where I was running the business. But just as I kind of open up my mind to looking at other things besides just the straight 401k, choose a mutual fund A, B, or C, and realize real estate was a path. Again, you do something else. Don't just rely on that. To your point, don't just rely on your W-2 income, because again, there isn't loyalty from employers toward employees, and I'm sure it's vice versa as well. But at the same point in time, I think it's Cardone talks about in one of his books. You're either working to build your own business and your own wealth, or you're doing that for somebody else. You're working to build their wealth. So yeah, I love what you said. That's great.
Yeah, that's so true. I recently saw this quote from Robert Kiyosaki, right, the author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, that said something to the effect of, you're so much better off spending years of your life building an asset for yourself instead of working your whole life for money, where all you're doing is building someone else's asset.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's so true. Here's something I love about real estate investing. I always tell people about this. It doesn't matter what career you have, what work you do, just about anyone can own a rental house or two or four, whatever, right? Yeah. And if you do that and hold it long term and continue running your business, doing your job, your work, whatever you love, do what fills your soul, right? Do that. But if you can have some rental property on the side and hold it long term, that is going to completely change your life, guaranteed. If you put in the work, you go in for the long term, that's going to change your life financially. And by the time you get to retirement, you may find that the income from that real estate is well in excess of any anything coming out of your retirement account, anything coming to you from Social Security, if it's still around by then, right? And so this is life changing, and anyone can do it. And so I always like to tell people, like, get involved in real estate. Have some rentals. If you decide that's not for you, that's fine. Like, invest as a passive investor in a managed real estate deal. That's okay too. Do what works for your life and your lifestyle. And it's the same thing with notes. And we can get more into that, but there's different ways to get involved, and there's no right or wrong answer. It's all about finding what's going to fit well into your lifestyle and your circumstances and what you want to do.
Yeah. People think that you have to have 6 figures in the bank to be able to buy real estate. That's not true. I mean, Bill and I do build the large properties of 100 unit apartments, but simply in time, you can invest with just, some money in the bank. Sure. So Fred, as you look back to your engineering days, is there a funny story you can share, something that happened to you along the way?
Yeah, definitely. This is not a pleasant story, but I'd love to share it with you because I think it will resonate with a lot of people. One day when I was working, I walked into my manager's office in the morning, right? And it was just this typical day at work. I hear the phones ringing in the background, smell the scent of fresh coffee, right? And I walk into my manager's office and just to sit down and have a friendly conversation, right? But I looked at him and there was this look of absolute dread on his face. And I could just tell that something was terribly wrong. And Jacob was the engineering manager at the company where I worked. And he was a bit older than I was, like a great leader, such a great mentor. I always had looked up to him and learned from him. And he was looking forward to retiring. He was at that point in his career where he was planning on retiring in the next couple of years. And so we would have these great conversations. He would share with me his plans, the projects that he wanted to take up once he was in retirement. I mean, it was wonderful. I really loved hearing those stories. And so back in that moment, I looked at him because something was not right. And I was trying to figure out what happened. And so I just asked him, hey, is everything okay? And so he looked up at me. With this expression on his face. And all he said was, how on earth am I going to retire now? And then he turned his monitor screen around to show me he was looking at his 401k account. And he said, the value of my 401k account dropped in half, like in this very short time. And it was all because for years and years, he was just investing his money using the default strategy, right? What gets typically promoted through 401k plans. And what had happened was there was a massive stock market correction, and there's been many over the years, but it caused the account value to drop significantly. And so he realized that he was not going to be able to retire in a couple of years as he had planned. And he said, I'm going to have to work like a whole nother decade just to get myself back to even again.
Yeah.
And then after that, he started asking me, he said, hey, I know you're involved in real estate. Can you tell me about what you do? And that just looks like something I need to get involved in. And so from there, after that, we had this financial connection of conversations and learning, and taught him a lot. And eventually he became an investor with me in my fund. But I mean, that was something that I will never forget, like those moments and that morning of living through that. And so, like you said, it's it's a lot of people, all they know about investing is their 401k plan at work. Right. And, that's great to have that. Absolutely take advantage of that, but don't let that be the only thing that you do for your investing in your future.
Right.
I think it's I think it's like you said, I think it's a good start, because I think without it, people might not invest in anything. Right. So at least having a 401k, and now I think they're more mandating almost when it's automatic enrollment. It's almost like your home. If you have a home, at least you have some kind of building equity. If people aren't good savers, you have some basic safety level there. But to everybody's point, I mean, like you said, in an inflationary environment, whatever it is, you want to have things that have 100% correlation on the risk to it, right? You want to have, like I said, cash producing real estate, notes, something else that's not direct correlation to the real estate market. And I remember back in, the .com bubble back in 07, 08, the joke was your 401k became your 201k. I mean, you just got cut in half. I mean, yeah. And of course, some of that's also risk going into it, right? I mean, you can't be 100% equities if you're that close to retirement within a year or two that you may not have time to recover, right? You need to put more into cash or something else that won't necessarily get cut in half directly if approaching events. Yeah. But like I said, the diversification, I think, is key. And I think we're all kind of saying that same message on that.
We are absolutely. Would it be okay if I maybe take a little more explanation in what note investing is?
No, absolutely.
In case any of you listeners might be hearing about it for the first time, right? So note investing is basically investing in the debt that's backed by real estate, right? And a lot of people like to invest in real estate, whether it's houses or commercial properties or multifamily. But with note investing, we can talk about investing in the paper, investing in the notes and mortgages which are associated with those properties. And this is really, I find it's a really interesting part of the real estate business. And for some reason, a lot of real estate investors, they don't pay any attention to it. And when they think of a note and mortgage, they think of being the borrower and not as being the lender. But when you get involved in note investing, when you buy a note, that allows you to step across the aisle and become the bank. And then you transition from being the one making the monthly payments to being the one that's receiving the monthly payments. And note investing, it's just a great way to increase the predictability of your cash flow. And I find for maybe someone that has a good amount of real estate holdings, they want to diversify. Notes is a great option and allows for diversification. And for someone with a real estate background, they get it. They understand how this works. They understand why banks do not have a business model to own property. They just want to lend on property and be a secured lien holder. And that's their business model. And, this has been around since biblical times, frankly. Mm-hmm. So I love it. I love the business. And I love talking about it and teaching people about it. And there's some different ways to get involved in note investing that we can get into a little more further down the discussion.
Mm-hmm. Is most of your note investing, is it centered around like residential properties, or do you do commercial also with that? Or
I focus primarily on residential properties. We buy a lot of notes that are bank originated, as opposed to notes that are seller finance originated, which is a little bit of a different business model. But think of it this way: your typical Fannie Freddie definition of residential real estate, which is your 1 to 4 unit properties, those are the notes we buy. And we buy notes all over the country. It really allows for ease of geographical diversity, and that's good. It gives a lot of diversity into a portfolio that way.
Fred, just to reiterate, I think you said this, but I just want to confirm. You said you are not typically buying the seller financing notes. You're buying really the bank notes. Is that
yes.
Right? Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
That's just me. That's just me. But I know other note investors that focus on that. There's so many niches within note investing. It's just some different nuances and a different niche. That's all. But some folks, that's what they do. They love buying notes that are seller finance notes, and I'm sure you guys see this all the time doing large multifamily deals. Right when lending gets tight, then you start seeing transactions where the seller's carrying back a note. Maybe they hold it for a couple of years and then they end up selling it. So that's happened. It's very, very common, very common. And, it's something to watch out for if you're an investor and maybe at some point you have an opportunity to buy a note that gets presented to you. Definitely consider it and take a look at it and see if it's something that may work for you.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, Fred, what was, as you look back, was there a deciding factor in getting to leave the computer side of it into the real estate? I remember you mentioned that you didn't want everything tied to just a W-2 paycheck, but I guess somewhere along was just like a point in time, you're like, I've got to make this transition. Somehow you became open to the idea of real estate investing.
Yeah, I did. I became not open to it, but I got involved heavily. And it was just time. There wasn't enough hours in the day to do everything, and I saw that there were so much opportunities in the investing space, and I loved it. I love it. It became my passion, and it aligned with me. So that's really what inspired me to make that change. And I feel it's so rewarding to be in business for myself. I really enjoy that. And it was a new thing for me because I spent decades working for companies, right? I did that. And so I enjoyed the transition and the change in lifestyle.
Mm-hmm. So Fred, you already had the steady income from the W-2, but you were also moving in direction of doing other types of investing and eventually your note business. And in other words, you kind of were running up your side hustle as you were running. You had a steady paycheck, and then you got to a point where you're able to just cut the W-2 off and do your business full time.
Yes,
that's awesome. So, as you really, you tell me whether it's maybe some of the early buying houses you talked about, or maybe it's your note business. I'm just looking for, is there an obstacle you had to overcome somewhere in the way? People thinking about you in a different light? Anything you could share?
Yeah, definitely. Some of the obstacles were with mindset and getting comfortable with the idea of not having a steady income anymore. That can be difficult to wrap your mind around. And I see people that want to make that change and they struggle with that. I know I did for quite a long time, right? I wanted to have everything just dialed in perfectly, have reserves set up and have a fallback plan and all this. I'm an engineer, right? Yeah, I wanted to have all that dialed in. And you know what? In life, the world is never going to be perfect. There's never going to be the perfect time. And if you think about it, right, have you ever heard that quote, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, right, and the second best time is right now? Yeah. I mean, that's what it comes down to. So definitely, I would say the mindset is huge. And I spent a lot of time studying in the personal development space and just working on that. And that's helped me a lot with being confident and being a good leader. And let's put it this way. I was a leader when I was working in engineering, and I was an engineering manager and I was mentoring younger employees and staff, and I enjoyed that. And I'm kind of doing the same thing now with investors. I teach, I speak a lot. Investors in our fund, they look to me for guidance and as a mentor. And I really enjoy that. I really find that rewarding. And one thing in this space that I think is fantastic is some of the older guys that I've learned from, right? They were so generous sharing of themselves, of their time, and making sure that that I would be successful. And I remember one old time investor, he said, take all the things you've learned, everything I've taught you, and then when you make it big and you're successful, I want you to turn around and do that for someone else that's young and just starting out. And I always remember that. I always remember that. And I think it's so important to not only have coaches and mentors in your life, but also that you are a coach and a mentor for other people as well. And it just keeps that whole cycle moving. And I love that.
Fred, that is great. And again, that is why Bill and I do this podcast, this show, the Road Less Traveled show, to give back and share ideas with other people. We also run 2 monthly meetings for the point of giving back and trying to help others learn, because as you said, a lot of people were very gracious to us as we got started with some of their time and some of their ideas and, go in this direction, et cetera. So yeah, help others. Exactly.
Well, Fred, as you look back, can you think of one point in time that was like you'd say was your first victory when you left the W-2 world and you went into the real estate side that kind of solidified the idea that this was the right decision? I've made a good choice.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that really solidified it was when I got the first note fund launched, up and running, and we started having investors sign up. I mean, it was the best feeling. And the thing with a note fund in general, it's a passive investment. Investors are limited partners in that. And people were coming up saying, hey, I don't have time for this. It's so complicated and could be a lot of pitfalls. And yes, that's true. You can lose a lot of money very quickly. But investing in a fund, it allows investors to partner with the fund manager and leverage their expertise and their experience, their relationships. And I love that. And, relationships in what we do in this industry, in note investing, relationships are key. That is one of the most important things. And I don't care whether it's relationships with your investors, relationships with other note investors, because we're buying and selling notes to each other all the time, and the vendors we work with, just every one of the people that you encounter and work with, that allows this business to work together, allows all the gears to turn, everything to happen. So what's been most rewarding is developing the skill set of building relationships and nurturing relationships. And I love it. It's one of the most important parts of what I do. And it's just rewarding, the most rewarding thing in the world.
Absolutely, Fred. Yeah. Richard and I say all the time that we're not so much in the real estate business, we're in the relationship business, because it all ties back to those.
Absolutely.
At every level.
Yeah. So Fred, and perhaps in your note business, is there something funny that you can share, a humorous story that you've experienced?
Yeah. Humor story. Wow.
Something of note.
Yeah. It's funny. One thing that happens a lot in our industry is this is small. This is a niche business.
Yeah.
And when we I go to conferences and events that are in the note industry, we all know each other. And we may be competitors because we're competitively bidding on a large pool of notes to buy, right? On one hand, but then on the other hand, we may turn around and do business with each other, sell notes back and forth and transact that way. It's such a friendly environment. And it's like we're competitors, but then we're collaborators as well, and just depends on the day of the week. And it's amusing, but it's just magical to see how that all works out.
Nice.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, Fred, where are you today on your journey? You've transitioned. You use some of the early sign, the note and the note fund you're in now.
Yeah.
So where are you now? Like, where do you envision yourself going with your business?
Yeah, moving forward, we will continue to put together different note funds, adapting them as business conditions change, as market cycles change, because there are many different strategies. I've been doing quite a bit of writing. Writing is something I love, and it's a way for me to share and give back with others, and something I'm continuing to do. I came out with my first book in about a year and a half ago, and that's been wonderful. But beyond that, I've been invited to participate in a book collaborative project where we're breaking down Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich.
Okay.
And what we're doing is taking each of the 13 principles. There's 13 principles that he's outlined in the book, like faith, desire, specialized planning, persistence, right? There's 13 principles. And what we're doing in the book project, collaborating with about 35 other authors, and each of those 13 steps is a volume in the series. And so what we're doing is every 2 months, I have a writing deadline to write. So that keeps me moving. But we have to go back and read each chapter of Think and Grow Rich, internalize it, and I think about how it's impacted me and what examples of that have shown up in my life and my investing career, and then write about that and share that with the world. And it's been such a fulfilling project, not only for the learning I do in the research and writing, but also the opportunity to share of my own experiences and give to others through this body of work. It's a great project. It's called the 13 Steps to Riches, and we're about halfway through. We have about six or seven of the 13 volumes have been released so far.
Nice.
Great.
Yeah.
So if anybody hasn't read that book, I think there's if you are going to go beyond just the standard 401k investing, which please do, don't just stay there. Do something else. Even if you keep like Fred said, even if you keep your job, you love your job, do your job, invest. Like Bill said, do something, which is, even if it is just the 401k, do something for your future. But at the same point in time, go beyond that. And one of the ways you go beyond that is to read and learn. And there's so many other things out there. There's some kind of notes, there's some kind of real estate investing, things like that. But just do something for yourself. And a foundational book is Think and Grow Rich. And if you don't know, that book is close to 100 years old.
Yeah. Yeah. It was written in 1937. That's when it first came out. And it's timeless. It's timeless. Yeah. And the one thing I always tell people, when you read that book, in the beginning, there's instructions that tell you about how to read it, because it's not like you sit down and go cover to cover. You want to go chapter by chapter. The chapters are short. They're like 20 pages, 25 pages. So you digest each chapter one at a time and follow the instructions. There's very clear instructions in there. And if you're not alert to look out for that, you may just think, I'll just read the whole book and that's it. But you'll get a lot more out of it by doing it the way they recommend in the book. So the book has the instructions for how to read the book.
So the instructions are on the bottom of the boot. You turn the boot upside down, you can read the instructions, right? So Fred, is there anything you can share that you do as a way to give back to others, perhaps through your business, maybe personally, something like that you can share?
Yeah, absolutely. It's through mentoring others, and producing work through my writing. Mm-hmm. through speaking engagements. I love speaking, speaking to all kinds of groups, and find that rewarding to present people with different ideas, different concepts that, even if only one person decides, hey, I really like that and I want to implement that in my life, that's more than enough reward to me to do that. And I love sharing, giving back in that way.
That's excellent. Yeah. Well, Fred, as you've scaled, you obviously taking on more and more with the fund. And is there something you've implemented in your business that's allowed you to scale like this?
Yeah, absolutely. It has been using a team, right? When we're starting out as an entrepreneur, we're a solopreneur. We want to do everything ourselves, and it may be difficult to let go of things. But you have to realize it's important to find your purpose and your core skills, what you're good at, and focus your time on doing that. And then all of the other things, let somebody else do that. Hire that out or outsource it to a contractor or to a company, a vendor that they do that and do that well. In the note industry, here's a perfect example. We use servicing companies, note servicing companies, which service the note. Think of it as the same way a property manager manages a rental property for you. The servicing company, they manage the note for the investor. And they're set up to do this in scale. And I find some note investors, they want to service the note themselves and like collect the payments and do the bookkeeping on it. A loan servicer will do it for you for a very nominal fee. They take care of the compliance. They take care of all the tax statements at the end of the year for the borrower and for the lender. I mean, they do so much. Yeah. So it's like let go of things, especially where others can do it better than you. And then you can focus on your core skills, your core abilities, and that allows you to execute with excellence and mastery and do the things you're good at.
Yeah.
Right.
I love that's great. Again, focus on where you're able to best add value to the overall process rather than getting way down. Yeah, you're right. We want to understand the whole thing. We want to understand what it takes to go from A to Z. But at the same point, doesn't mean you have to do every step along the way.
Yeah.
Excellent. Good. So Fred, what advice would you share with somebody who's considering making a path change?
Considering making what?
A path change, leaving
path change. Yeah. Spend time with yourself to learn what is your purpose. What is your purpose in life? What is it that fulfills you inside your soul? Here's something that I'm sure will resonate with a lot of you. Why do people quit their jobs when they're working at a job? There's usually two reasons. The first reason is they're quitting their boss. That's it. Nothing else other than that. And the other reason is because the job or the work they're doing is not in alignment with their purpose. It's not fulfilling them. And sometimes it takes 10, 20 years to realize that you're working in a job that it's not nourishing you inside at a spiritual level. And that's so important. So, and it takes a long time to figure out what's your purpose, but put in the work and the effort to do that. And then you can see what business is there that aligns with that. And when you have those things in alignment, your attitude, your outlook, and your perspective changes radically. It really does.
That's great. Great advice. Yeah, Fred. Well, Fred, what's the best way for listeners to be able to reach out and learn more about what you're doing with the note investing and ways to get a hold of a copy of your book you came out with?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Bill. So the best way to connect with me is through my website, which is fredmoskowitz.com. right? But I understand. Let's make a little easier spelling of that. So you can also go to giftfromfred.com, and you can go on there. You can sign up for my newsletter. You can request a special report that I've put together about note investing that I'm happy to email out to you. And also, if you prefer using your mobile device, you can text the keyword money. All right, that's money. Text the keyword money to 215-461-4433. I'll repeat that. It's 215-461-4433. And then just follow the prompts. So I love connecting with investors, and my book that you mentioned, it's available on Amazon. It's called The Little Green Book of Note Investing. If the note investing is something you want to learn more about, it's a great way to have an overview of the industry and the business and how it works.
That's great. Yeah, we'll provide links in the show notes below to those sites. Well, Fred, we really enjoyed the conversation. I want to thank you for being on the Road Less Traveled show, and wish you continued success.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Richard. It was a pleasure sharing with you and having a great conversation. I really enjoyed this. Thank you so much for having me on.
Of course.
Absolutely, Fred. Thank you. We thank you as well for being on. We'd also like to thank Park Capital Partners that sponsors the show. And we want to thank our listeners. Please continue to give us a 5-star rating so we can bring you more great content like Fred Moskowitz on today's show. A couple quick reminders from Park Capital Partners. First, we have the Park Capital Partners Value Add Fund, which is open and available to take investments today. That's a 506c fund. And then secondly, we have the Park Capital Partners Foundation, which is another way that Bill and I give back. We created that nonprofit. It's a 501(c) nonprofit. That we do a couple things with that. First of all, Park Capital Partners funds it, so that all the money donated goes to do its best work, which is to help others. Second, we donate personally. Third, we donate as a portion of our profits as a firm. And then finally, when an investor invests with us, we make a donation to honor that investor to a charity that they get to choose from a list of 15. So please join us and reach out. We're happy to have a conversation anytime. We'll put our notes and contact information, of course, in the show notes. And thank you again, Fred, for being on.
Thank you.
Remember, folks, the road less traveled may be calling you. We recommend that you listen and take action. Thanks for joining.